Hi, everyone. Thanks, Katie. So she said I'm Michael Wojdylak. That's a mouthful. I'm president of the Park County Board of Realtors. And what I'm going to tell you all a little bit about today is exactly where the market stands today. It's kind of a tough thing to track, and certainly is a lot of crystal ball work when it comes to what's going to happen tomorrow for us. But what we can do is we can look at where we've been and where we are today. So I'm going to hopefully illustrate that for everyone so that we have a kind of a clearer idea of where exactly is the housing today. Okay, so this is a 10-year chart that shows you the green area there is your active listings. So you can see back prior to the whole housing dive, we had quite a few active listings, typically month to month here in the Park County area. But then as you see, the housing crisis had the effect of eliminating those active listings in terms of sales only. So what was happening there when that dive was taking place, we actually saw a lot of homeowners in the Park County area, not a lot, but a significant number. They were needing to move to find employment other places, perhaps. They weren't able to sell their homes because for their own various economic reasons. So they actually were converting them into rentals for a period of time there. And for a period of time there, we actually had a pretty good rental situation in the area where we had more rentals than we actually had tenants, briefly. Today, however, that's kind of leveled off. And what we have been seeing throughout is actually people moving into the Park County area in an ever-increasing rate. So while rentals did start on a rise, and while the number of applications that property managers were receiving weren't at a pace that was necessarily underwater, that eventually started to change as more people were moving into the Park County area. And then we saw a little bit of a flip there where we are today, where we have more applicants than we actually have rentals. Now, you look down there at the bottom, those little bars represent all the sales. And so you have a pretty straight line there in terms of what was going on in sales in Park County. So your peaks represent your summers, your valleys represent your winters. Not too surprising there. Not a lot of people coming to Park County to look to buy a home in January, but there's plenty coming in July. So what we're seeing in a trend in terms of sales in the area as time goes forward is, well, here's a neat little statistic I heard on NPR not too long ago. Every week, approximately 10,000 baby boomers are retiring. So where are they going? What are they doing? Well, that's a big chunk of the people moving to the area is baby boomers retiring. They're looking for the small town community to move back into, to slow down a little bit. They're leaving the Bay Area, Seattle, your bigger metropolitan areas. They've retired from their careers and they're looking for a place to go do a little fly fishing in the summers. Interestingly, they're only spending half the year here. A lot of them are finding that they can sell the homes that they've lived in for decades back in these areas, and they are, homes that they may have bought for 60 grand back in the late 60s, and they've lived there all their lives. Now they're selling these homes, 900,000, million, 1.2, whatever, and they're discovering that they can buy a nice brand new home here in Southwest Montana, $400,000, and they can go to Scottsdale or Santa Fe or something like that, and they can buy another one for roughly the same. And that's putting enormous pressure on our building industry to continue to build these mainly cookie cutter homes for these folks moving this area. Their margins are better and they can make more money doing them, so they do. And I've talked to builders recently, and I asked them, we've got 22 lots available over in Brookstone right now. just screaming to be developed. These are zoned R3, so they're multi-family housing zones. They can be fourplexes. It's the property owner himself who's going to do the first build there. He's building on 3 lots, 14 units. And hopefully it's going to set a trend there. City services are being ran to the area, so all the hookups are going to be ready and ready to go. We have availability to develop this property, to address some of this housing, but the tricky part is to find the investor and then the builder to do the work, because there just isn't a lot of money to be made in this segment of the market right now. So while there's a lot of need, there is just not enough professionals out there to go ahead and kind of switch that supply and demand dynamic to a point where, if a builder was sitting idle and he had no place to build or no place to develop, he'd probably look at something like this. But right now, he's just making more money building the single-family stuff. Think of Northern Lights area right now. That's booming over there. So that's kind of what we see happening. Here's some interesting median trends as far as what's going on in Park County over these last 10 years. It kind of takes those little bars that were at the bottom and blows it up a little bit for you. If you look at the national trend there, that's the blue one that dipped pretty severely there and is starting to rise again. But you notice the red dot, the orange, and the green. That's our city, county, and the zip code. And really, overall, it's been a pretty fair increase in what the median values of the homes are. This again illustrates the folks that are moving into the area and what it's doing to the housing prices in this market right here. It's this big housing downturn really didn't have much of an effect on our housing prices here in the Park County area. So again, this is moving folks away from the affordable housing and what's it doing to the older homes and the values there. And we're seeing homes getting listed now under $200,000. They're barely on the market for a day or two before they have 4, 5, 6 offers on the place. And sometimes competing, sometimes above asking price. A lot of pressure right now to move into the area. So it's really having an effect on home values. And so these homes that are built in 1905, it's hard to believe that they can be going for $190,000, $200,000, and they're still running on 100 amp electricity. Some still have knob and tube, 2x4 construction, stacked stone foundations. It's amazing, Other communities across the country, you'd think that these houses would just simply be tear downs. Some of them should be. But folks are moving in, they're renovating, they're remodeling, and the pressure is to bring that price up. You look at the home ownership and occupancy, I put SE side, that's the South Leonard Streets. So really kind of split into thirds right there, homes owned to homes rented. There's actually a pretty high number of vacant homes, which I tried to figure out exactly how they were defining. When I pulled all the data, it kind of it fed this way, and I really couldn't get a very accurate definition of homes vacant, but that's the way the data all played out in terms of numbers. When you look across the city, we see a pretty decent home ownership. Across the city, the number of homes that are actually rented is about 25%. Homes vacant drops significantly. So, that just goes to show you that the South Leonard Streets, that's my neighborhood. That's where I live. That's the up and coming neighborhood. That's where a lot of stuff is going on right now in terms of properties moving and quickly moving over there. The folks that I mentioned earlier that had to leave and were putting their homes into the market as rentals are now finding that they can sell those homes. So definitely pulling out of the rental and selling to new owners. And very seldomly, they're staying rentals. Across the county, homes rented, again, dropping. This is the Gardner effect. So people down there, believe it or not, these are homes that are owned and that are very seldomly, actually, there's just more people living there than there is rentals available. And there is a tremendous need down there for our workforce housing, but just almost no place to put it, Across the nation, you can see what's going on there as it compares to our little segment of the world. It's pretty significant change. There's a lot of home ownership out there. Our city looks the same as that pretty much, but you drill down into some of these other neighborhoods and you find it's a little different. Just now to talk a little bit about how we handle the rentals in the area. What we like to do with our rentals, there's Maverick Realty has over 225 residential units that we manage. We vet every applicant that comes in. We make sure that the 30% number that was mentioned before is maintained. This is a gross income number, so we just, we don't account for things like utilities or car payments or any of that stuff. We only just started in the last year looking at credit scores. That's a number that we've really had to start looking at because of this aforementioned, how many credit cards does this person have? We don't know. So we started looking at credit scores, and that gives us a little bit of an indication of what's going on there with the applicants. We're still seeing large numbers of people coming to the area looking for affordable housing. Now, with all those units that we have available, as we have turnover, so when a unit that has been rented for years is about to become vacant due to someone moving, what we're finding is that the homeowners, the landlords, are then coming to us, the management company, and saying, what's the market rate? Can I adjust the rent? And that is the point in time where we would advise the landlord on, what is the market value and what is the going rate for rents. We don't raise rents to tenants that have been in place. What we instruct our landlords there is that we've placed this tenant based on an income level, and we don't have evidence or proof that this income is changing at a rate where we need to adjust the rent. So we have some units out there that we have tenants that have been in for years and their rent has never changed. These are one-bedroom units that maybe are renting for about $450 a month. But when tenants move, that's where we see the adjustment, and that's when we see rental rates, and that's where we get a lot of this, the rents are getting outrageous. And frankly, in my own personal opinion, they are a bit, but it is the landlord's choice to decide what to do when that market analysis is presented to them. And oftentimes they do raise the rent. Sometimes it does come up rather significantly. 3-bedroom units right now in the Park County area are renting everywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 a month. These are sometimes just most of the time single-family homes, and but they range in age. They range in age from something, again, that was built in the early 1900s to things that have been built in the last 5-10 years. So we're seeing a lot of pressure when a new rental unit comes on the market to. We're directed to get the best rent we can, and oftentimes that starts to exceed what the greater majority of those people that are in need of housing, the workforce market, they're getting priced out for sure, but there is still plenty of applicants to load into these units. So we have plenty of units throughout the area where we have owners that even with the change in tenants, we don't get a change in rents. We have properties like the Sterling Building, we have the Calendar Block Building, we have the Absorca Apartments. Most of these units will stay pretty static in terms of what their rents are. And that's, when those units come on, they're filled in a heartbeat, just that quick. We have people, we don't really run waiting lists. We instruct all of our applicants to pay attention to what's available through our website. Because there's that many. We can't keep track of everyone. We can't do a waiting list. It's a first come, first serve, and it oftentimes is a feeding frenzy, unfortunately. We work very closely with HRDC. All Section 8 individuals, for example, we work very hard to place. We more or less tell all of our owners that they're fully qualified individuals, and which they are. So we don't, we very seldomly, although it may have sounded earlier that landlords will say, no, we just don't even want to deal with them. We very seldomly have that happen around the area here. Most times it's a situation where there's just the availability for the rentals is just too sparse. It's just not enough. Yeah. So, yeah, here's the rentals for the last 10 years. There again is our green, red, and orange. They almost completely overlay with each other. And we're seeing in the last 10 years, the average rent in this market has only gone up. Has gone up $200. And I say only, it's significant, but it's $200. You look at the rest of the country, and they're obviously well above us. But that's that little dip that occurred in there. That's again where we saw a lot of homeowners having to leave the area and can't sell their properties, so they put them on the market as rentals. So we actually had a period of time where we have a lot of rentals, and we saw rates going down as a result because we had more rentals than we had applicants. So really, it's just, again, we come back around to it, and when all said and done, it's supply and demand. So that's really what it ultimately comes down to when we're talking about the housing that's available, whether it's sales or rentals.
Back to your previous chart here, if you could, right? On the homes vacant citywide, I'm assuming that 18.8, that represents the churn. It's a relatively stable number. You've got churn in there for homes.
There's churn, yes, there's churn. There's also homes that are just sitting.
What about the high rate of vacant homes countywide?
Yeah, again, this home's vacant. I almost didn't put it on here. I was able to not clearly define where they were talking about homes vacant. So my question in my mind was, is the second homes on properties that have second homes? Is this, are these vacant lot? Oh, please, yes.
My question is the basis of that kind of your census figures for the homes vacant, or was that from another source?
Yeah, some of the stuff did come from HUD and the census and everything else, so we were pulling down.
Vacant is typically they'll typically break it down further. They'll have vacant homes, and then some of them will be kind of like, they're awaiting tenants, but that is also where they will include homes that are for seasonal, recreational, or
Second homes was one of my mind's ideas that this is where a lot of these vacancies come from.
And not necessarily homes that are on the market. You're not showing any of that.
No, these aren't homes that are on the market. These are homes that are vacant. So, yes.
So how's a VRBO classified? Since they could be owner occupied or rental occupied, is it, how are they here?
I believe they're getting stuffed into the rented area. They did not separate them in terms of, what defined the homes rented. Just a quick comment on the VRBO. We did see, initially, I'm speaking 3 years ago, a fair uptick in individuals wanting to test that market and put their properties out there available for home B&B and that sort of thing, VRBO. That's since leveled off and actually starting to come back down. The homeowners are finding it a lot easier to have the year-round tenant. and they're getting better security in their property. They're not having to have the costs of the turnover. For example, some of these VRBOs were operated almost like hotels. Well, you need to hire staff for that kind of thing. You need to have people that can get in there and clean and turn a place over, sometimes in hours. And that's a very unavailable resource in the area. So it became a pretty significant headache for the homeowners, so now they're starting to pull back a little bit from it, and they're starting to put their properties back into year-round tenancy.
On that southeast side, on that homes vacant, is any of that have to do with the plume?
The what?
The carcinogenic plume? There were some homes that were vacated because they were bought.
It's true. It's true. I mean, there's probably many reasons. The plume is probably a reason for these homes vacating originally. Some of these homes are sitting vacant simply because there's actually quite a few mobile homes, for example, laced throughout the whole southeast side. A lot of these are sitting vacant because they've lived past their lifespan. There's homes that are, again, on stacked stone foundations. Some homes with still active knob and tube. People are looking at, the lot value. It's just, these are homes that are vacant, but the lot value doesn't, the work involved, again, the builders, the investors, they're looking at where can I make money? I mean, that's important to them. So they want to know, how can I make a buck? Well, it's a lot easier to start with bare land, nice, easy, taps right into the city services. I make good margins. Or go over to this property and I got a tear down scenario. I got all this other business involved, eats away the margins. They're not making as much money. So it's just simple, new construction, easy. And that's where they go right now. We had a lot more builders in the area. I think we'd have a lot more investment in these areas because, they're hungry. They want work, so. But we are losing a lot of craftsmen to the Bozeman area. I mean, we have, again, a lot of rentals. It's very difficult for us sometimes to find a plumber to go take care of replacing a toilet because why? He's over in Bozeman doing new construction. So pretty tough to find that individual. So I think we could really benefit from an uptick in some of these craftsmen moving to our area. I think it might help the supply and demand, but how do you get them here?